Record. Oh, we have one more person in the waiting room coming in. All right, as folks finish filtering in, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us for this update on the Whyte's Laundromat site. I am losing my voice a little bit, so I'm going to pass the ceremonies over to Dan Curran, our consultant from Verdantas. Take it away, Dan.
Awesome. Good afternoon, everyone. Again, thank you for taking the time to come to our Brownfields Committee meeting to discuss the White's Laundry site and some other exciting brownfield projects going on in the area. All right. So for our agenda today, we'll begin with some short introductions. We'll provide an update on Lynn's community-wide assessment grant. We'll discuss recent activities and next steps for the cleanup at the White's Laundry site, as well as some ongoing activities at nearby brownfield sites. And then we'll finish things up. We'll leave plenty of time at the end for questions and answers and discussions at the end of our presentation. So as Lauren mentioned, I'll start the introductions. I'm Dan Curran. I'm a project manager with Verdantas working on the Whyte's Laundry site. Verdantas is the qualified environmental professional who is selected by the city to help manage the US EPA cleanup grant for the Whyte's Laundry site. I'm joined by my colleague, Tracy Costa from Verdantas. She's our Brownfields Market Sector Leader for New England and is also serving as the Licensed Site Professional, or LSP, for the Whyte's Laundry site. I'll kick it over to you, Lauren.
I'm Lauren Drago. I work in the planning office for the city of Lynn, and I am the project manager for this grant. Bill and Dominic?
Hi, everyone. I'm Bill Bachneck. I'm the operations manager here for EDIC Lynn, and I'll let Dominic say hello real quick.
Hi, everyone. I'm Dominic Grays. I'm an intern here at the Lynn EDIC.
And we'll kick it over to our colleague here in the office, Justin De La Cruz.
Hey everyone, I'm Justin De La Cruz. I'm the outreach manager with EDIC Lynn.
I'll also just note that we have Cain and Chris are US EPA project officers for this grant on the call as well.
Hello. Nice seeing you.
My name is Cain Bongalay, and as Lauren just said, I am the Brownfields Project Officer for Lynn. A pleasure to meet you all and to be here today.
Oh, hey everyone, I'm Chris, and if you need anything, you can call Cain. Thanks.
Excellent. All right, so we'll touch briefly on Lynn's community-wide assessment. So the US EPA has awarded the city of Lynn a 4-year, $500,000 FY24 community-wide brownfields assessment grant to support assessment and planning related to brownfield sites in the city. EDIC Lynn and the city are currently reviewing proposals to select a qualified environmental professional. The QEP, Qualified Environmental Professional, will provide technical assistance to the project team and conduct phase 1 and 2 environmental site assessments, hazardous building materials surveys, and perform site reuse and cleanup planning. And Lauren, please feel free to jump in if you'd like to add any other details.
Yeah, so we wanted to just mention this grant. Some of you have been on our calls before, so you might be familiar, but this is another grant from the US EPA for brownfields work in the city of Lynn. So this topic today will be talking about the Whyte's Laundromat and a cleanup grant that we received, but we are very fortunate to also have this pot of money coming into play very soon from our friends at US EPA. And that'll provide assessment support for different sites throughout Lynn. So we will definitely have a lot of community engagement on that project as we get the QEP on board. And you all are on my email list, so you'll probably be hearing updates from me on that in the next few months. But we'd love to have folks participate in that process and help us identify priorities for how we can best spend those funds to support our community. Back to you, Dan.
Excellent. All right, so we'll jump into some status updates on the Whyte's Laundry site since we last met. We're very appreciative that the United States Environmental Protection Agency has completed baseline groundwater sampling at the Whyte's Laundry site as part of what's called the Targeted Brownfields Assessment, or TBA. EPA performed baseline sampling in the vicinity of the site from October through November 2024, including the installation and sampling of additional groundwater monitoring wells in the area. Their assessment detected evidence of chlorinated volatile organic compounds, or VOCs, from the Whyte's laundry site and suspect impacts from other potential sources. While we did find these evidence of impacts, the analytical results did identify decreasing concentrations of these chlorinated VOCs attributable to successful remedial applications performed by the city in 2021. Additionally, since our last meeting, there's been great progress to secure the site and help prepare it for cleanup. Completed activities at the site have included the completion of a site property survey, tree and vegetation removal, trash and debris cleanup, and installation of a fence with a grant from the Massachusetts Department of Environmental Protection. So this beautiful new fence you can see is now up around the site if you've taken a drive by it, and it's shown here on that image on the right. And I'd like to give a big shout out to Justin De La Cruz of EDIC Lynn. Throughout the whole process, Justin worked closely with the abutting property to coordinate the fence installation, and it was a massive help in ensuring that this important step went off without a hitch. So thank you very much, Justin. As a result of EPA's baseline groundwater sampling, we identified elevated concentrations of tetrachloroethylene, or TCE, within a newly installed groundwater monitoring well located on the sidewalk of Willow Street, east of the post office property. Verdantas and the city contacted Mass DEP to report these elevated concentrations of PCE above what is referred to as the GW2 criteria within 20 feet of a residential property. In response, in April of this year, Mass DEP performed indoor air sampling at the 19 Willow Street property to assess potential impacts to residential receptors in the apartment building. Mass DEP's results did not detect impacts above threshold values and concluded that no additional sampling was necessary, which was terrific news for the community around the area. And then here, for folks who aren't super familiar with the area, this 19 Willow Street property, just east of Oxford Street, past the post office, is the property in question where Mass DEP performed the sampling. We had installed, as part of that TBA assessment, a groundwater monitoring well in the sidewalk along that Willow Street there. Shown here is a general timeline for next steps for cleanup at the Whyte's laundry site. Public bidding for the city's cleanup contractor is underway as of this month. Cleanup activities under the US EPA cleanup grant will be broken into 2 stages, including on-site in situ chemical oxidation, or ISCO, remedial injections to be performed later this summer, 2025, and in 2026 we'll return to the site to install a permeable reactive barrier. Approximately 6 months following each of these cleanup activities, the US EPA's Targeted Brownfields Assessment Team will perform post-remedial groundwater monitoring, including the installation and sampling of additional groundwater monitoring wells in the spring of 2026 and monitoring well sampling in 2027. These activities will be used to gather data on the performance of the cleanup activities and document reductions in concentrations of chlorinated VOCs in the groundwater. And the exciting part, once cleanup and monitoring activities are completed, the city will be performing reuse planning for the site. So just briefly touch on the remedial program. Here are 2 cross-section diagrams that depict our remedial approach. The graphic on the left shows our active remedial approach, that ISCO injections, where a remedial reagent is injected into the subsurface under a carefully prescribed program which will be monitored. This will be accomplished through the injection of sodium permanganate, which has been previously demonstrated as an effective method at the site to reduce CVOC concentrations. And on the right is the permeable reactive barrier, which will be installed in 2026. This is our passive remedial approach, with the application essentially of a wall of 0 valent iron and emulsified vegetable oil. This will work as groundwater flows through the PRB. Contaminant concentrations and the plume size of impacted groundwater are anticipated to decrease over a number of years. Groundwater performance monitoring will be conducted after each injection event, as just previously touched on. Now, throughout these cleanup activities, health and safety are paramount for site workers in the community. As mentioned, Mass DEP assisted the city to funding to install the fenced enclosure to secure the Whyte's property. All site activities will be conducted under city permits, and proposed drilling and injection locations will be pre-cleared of subsurface utilities. And looking at the image on the right, all chemical agents that are used and on site during the remediation activities will be secured in a locked container with police and fire department notifications and approvals. And lastly, all on-site workers will be OSHA HAZWOPER certified throughout the duration of the cleanup effort. Now, we'd like to take a few minutes to discuss other ongoing brownfield projects in the area, including the 87 to 93 and 101 Liberty Street property. This is a recent site where a release of petroleum hydrocarbons was discovered during site redevelopment activity. The release was attributed to fuel oil from a suspect leaking underground storage tank. And I believe EPA is currently assisting in performing a targeted brownfields assessment at the site at this time. Lauren, feel free to jump in if you have anything to add on this one.
Yeah. Oh gosh, my voice. I'm so sorry, everyone. This is the Lynn Shelter Association's development project, which the city is supporting through local ARPA funds. And we just mention it here because it's so close to the rest of the project that we're discussing. But they're currently working with our friends at US EPA through that targeted brownfields assessment to hopefully remove the vault where the suspected oil tank is and clean up that. Well, it's targeted assessment, but through because you have to get to the soil underneath the tank, the program is able to take care of those tanks in those vaults. And so this is, I think, a good thing for anyone in this area to know, or in Lynn in general, that if you're running into a problem related to brownfields, I mean, they originally reached out to Mass DEP, they reached out to me. We were able to get them the support from the US EPA's existing programs to help solve this problem. And I think it's a really important testament for our community of like, there is a village here that's ready and able to help when these things come up. So relevant for this site just because it's so proximate. You can see our 83 Willow Street on the same map. We're looking at the Liberty Street properties right there in the middle. And fortunately, from what we're seeing so far, the US EPA is going to be able to help them resolve this unexpected problem, and they should be able to continue on their construction, maybe not perfectly on schedule from their original plan, but in due time. So thank you again to our EPA representatives for your colleagues' support on making that happen for them.
Awesome. The next site we wanted to touch on is actually just just a lot or two up the street from that building, 57 Liberty Street. This is a 0.4 acre city-owned lot that is currently used as a parking lot for the multi-service center. Verdantas performed assessment activities in 2024 that identified lead and what's called polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbon, or PAH, impacts to soil and lead impacts to groundwater. Now, these impacts are attributable to the historic placement of urban fill, which is quite common in these heavily urban and industrial portions of Lynn and just other cities, old industrial cities throughout Massachusetts. Verdantas was able to fast track our assessment activities to support the city's mass development cleanup grant application. And we were able to dovetail that right in, keep the momentum going, and clean up activities, which are anticipated to comprise excavation of impacted soil, are anticipated to commence this month. So again, this is kind of bottom right here of the corner. It's just the very corner of the Whyte's laundry site. Here is that 57 Liberty Street parking lot, and this kind of red box that we have here is that targeted excavation area. And the last nearby site we wanted to talk about is the 40 to 48 Central Square site, which has been having some ongoing redevelopment. Site investigation activities at this property have identified chlorinated VOC impacts to soil and groundwater, which are attributable to former dry cleaning, which operated at the property, very similar to the Whyte's property. Now, this site, as we've started looking into it, is very complicated, as site investigations have identified multi-directional groundwater flow in the vicinity of the site. And now I'm about to pull up a quick figure here. It's very busy. It's got a lot going on, so don't feel like you need to look at all of it. But essentially what we want to show here, so this is just the 40 to 48 property, kind of at this intersection near Central Ave, Washington Street. I believe this triangular property is 230 Central Ave, if I recall correctly. All of these little red arrows are showing different groundwater flow directions at the site. So as you can see, it's very complicated. In the northern portion, impacted groundwater is flowing to the north. As you move a little more west, it transitions westerly, goes back north. In the eastern portion, it's going east. Portions are transitioning more south. There's just a lot going on with this property that we wanted to document, which really complicates the evaluation of impacts related to the Whyte's laundry site. So we mentioned the 19 Willow Street, which is kind of just off this image to the right. We went ahead and reported that to Mass DEP, but there is potential impacts from other sites that do warrant some evaluation in the future. And this has been a fun little project we had some of our team members work on. We've been conducting some historical research in the area to identify historic dry cleaning and laundries. So all of these kind of orange-yellow properties that are highlighted on this map in the vicinity of our Whyte's laundry site are all historic dry cleaners or laundries. And now, while we're certainly not implying that every one of these has had a release condition or anything like that, as you can see, it just gets complicated when there are so many different historic operations in the area. And while we know there are impacts from the Whyte's laundry site, there is uncertainty that all of the impacts that have been identified in the area could be solely attributed to the Whyte's laundry site. And overall, the city has been being really proactive in their approach to the Whyte's laundry site and cleanup effort in the surrounding community, despite all this uncertainty. Awesome. That is the end of what we had prepared today. As always, Lauren and the project team will keep everyone apprised of ongoing activities through regular emails, mailings, and old-fashioned block walking. Information will also be routinely distributed through the Whyte's Laundry project page at Lynn in Common. And you can always reach out to Lauren or myself directly at the contact information shown on the screen. Again, we'd like to thank everyone for taking the time to join us today, and we'd like to welcome opening up the floor to any questions, comments, discussions.
Yeah, hi, this is Wig Zamor. Thanks for alerting me to this meeting. I mostly had some things to do with the Athena's property, old restaurant and parking lots. I'm wondering if you've got an assessment of the likely lifetime volume of each of these sources. Whyte's handled most of Longwood Medical's hospital gowns for decades, but obviously a local dry cleaner would be, a dot on the map compared to the scale of Whyte's. So I'm just wondering what the relative volumes are that you think came out of each site.
Yeah, no, we certainly haven't been able to do any sort of analysis like that. Really that would require kind of going to each of these sites, and as we said, confirming if there was a release condition. We weren't implying there was one from each and every one of these. What we can say is, we've looked at the volume and mass of, these contaminants sorbed onto the soil and in the groundwater at the Whyte's laundry site. And it's been responding really well to the treatments that were performed in 2021. And there's, great confidence that the work we're going to do later this year and then installing the PRB will continue to help really clean up what's on that source zone at the Whyte's laundry property.
Yeah, and just to be clear, I'm not questioning your data or approach or anything that you're doing, but I am curious whether there's historic records that, maybe a local city historian type of person, might have a completely different angle on this that might be helpful.
No, absolutely. That's a great thought.
Yeah, we can keep that in mind, Twig. Dan, or perhaps if Kyene or Chris is available to answer this particular question, Diane was talking about potential impacts of federal cuts to the EPA and other federal grant programs on the future of these projects. I guess I'll wait and see if Chris or Kyene wants to take it. Otherwise, I'm happy to answer if you'd prefer.
Yeah, no, this is Chris. And right now, as far as the overall EPA, I really have no information on that. But for the brownfields program, we have not had any impacts on the brownfields program. So we, in fact, last week just announced another $59 million in New England to brownfields projects. So we're told at our program to continue to go full steam ahead. So.
I'll also say too, our project officers have been super communicative and helpful at a time of great uncertainty. And I really just appreciate all of that. That's been great.
Awesome. And Lauren, I see a question in the chat here from Michael. Are contemporary dry cleaners an ongoing risk for release of contaminants, such as mentioned in the historical overview?
I can also help answer that question. The state has been very, very proactive over the last 5+ years to really work with dry cleaners to convert from using PC or tetrachloroethylene to other types of non-toxics. And they've been very, very successful. So if you go to a dry cleaner now, it's highly, highly unlikely in the state of Massachusetts that they're using PCE. So overall, we're seeing this is such a positive trend. And so again, many of these releases we're seeing are really historic releases, but that's really to the benefit of Mass DEP and all the measures they've taken under the Toxic Use Reduction or TUR program. And I'm a TUR planner, so it's been an awesome program. And also with OTA in Massachusetts, they've been just really hands-on with dry cleaners. So hopefully that answers your question.
Any other questions or comments?
Oh, Lauren, it does look like we have one other person in the waiting room.
Oh, there's Calvin. Well, fortunately, we recorded this and the plan is to put this all on the project webpage. I dropped the URL in the chat, and we'll also do an updated blog post so that it's easy to follow along. But as Dan mentioned, we're very pleased that we got the fence in, we got some of that initial assessment work done. So a lot has been accomplished over the last few months on the site. And it really has been a team effort between the funding from Mass DEP, the funding from the US EPA, and all of these different partners kind of coming together to support the future reuse of this site. So we'll continue that collaboration in the future. And of course, if you have any other questions or comments off of this meeting, you're welcome to reach out to me or to Dan. And happy to keep you in the loop as much as you're interested. Otherwise, I think we can probably close it out for today. And we will be reaching out as soon as our next committee meeting, probably in the coming months, to share more updates on the site and hear any feedback you guys have from us. All right. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you all for your time today. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.